Hello everyone, and welcome back to Goldbound. We are back on our Night Elf Hunter, continuing the journey in one of my favorite zones of all time, Ashenvale. As always, let's quickly go over the rules for anyone who might be new here. I'm bound to a single zone until I reach a set amount of gold. All items must come from questing or looting. I can sell goods on the auction house, but I'm not allowed to buy anything from it. Only after reaching the required gold amount, I can unlock a neighboring zone of my choice and continue the journey. In the comments of the last episode, someone suggested that the gold target should depend on the level range of the zone. I like that idea, so for Ashenvale, our goal will be 125 gold before we are allowed to move on. That feels like a fair challenge for this level, I think. Speaking of comments, the majority of you voted for the spotted frost saber as our future mount. And I have to agree, it fits perfectly with our pet. Back in the day, I almost always went with the striped versions of this mount, so this will be something new. As appealing as a matching pet and mount would be right now, I have to wait until level 40. And the reins are safely tucked away in the bank for now. Now it was time to set foot into Ashenvale, and what better way to do this than combining the long road ahead with an escort quest. Unfortunately, one of the more annoying ones, thanks to this guy giving his best Malfurion impression.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
But well, it could be worse, I guess. And as always, when starting a new zone, the first order of business was to pick up every quest I could find, hand in some completed tasks from the previous area, and start exploring. The first thing that caught my attention was Kingsblood. It's not the rarest herb, but I was curious about its value. It's used in potions like Elixir of Rage and also for Thorium Brotherhood reputation, so I was pretty optimistic about its value. The wool and silk cloth drops from the enemies around this area were also a nice bonus. Small but steady sources of income. They are not the kind of loot that gets you excited by any means, but in the long run those small stacks add up. While questing, I ran into Apothecary Foltis, a rare spawn that can drop some decent items. He didn't have the two-handed axe I was hoping for, but he did drop a bind on equip vest, which should sell nicely at the auction house. I continued to quest along the shoreline.
Hello there.
And headed to Astrana shortly after. There, I decided to invest in 2 enchanting formulas. They were cheap and had a decent resale potential. Farming a few Fulbergs a little further inland, I found my first Purple Lotus. Unfortunately, my herbalism skill wasn't high enough to pick it up yet. Hopefully, the other herbs in Ashenvale would help to get my skill to 210.
Hey, post-record Muffin here. As it turns out, it's really not worth it to work towards this goal, since Purple Lotus is really not that valuable.
A bit later, I spotted my first Steelbloom. Funny enough, these are worth quite a bit. Even though the alchemy recipes that use them aren't particularly special, at least I don't see the appeal. Is it the invisibility pot? Maybe some of you can help me out in the comments. And well, sometimes rarity alone determines the price, and Steelbloom is definitely scarce around these parts. I started scouting for potential farming spots. Spiders seemed like an option, in theory. They drop silk, which is always in demand, but the problem is the amount of junk they drop alongside it. Not exactly efficient, so I kept looking. Back in town, I picked up some new skills and put a few items in the auction house, and to my surprise, one of the enchantments I listed showed up for over 6 gold. If it actually sold for that, it would be one of the best profit margins so far. Still, I've learned not to celebrate too early when it comes to items like this. Meanwhile, the Kingsblood didn't seem promising. Not much movement on that one. While browsing, I noticed large venom sacs were selling for a surprisingly high amount. That almost made me reconsider farming spiders after all. If the demand was real, it could turn into a solid income stream. And of course, Steelbloom continued to hold its value. About 1 gold each, which is great. The only problem is finding enough of them to make it worthwhile. Back in Ashenvale, I took a break to do some fishing. Fishing in Classic, as you know, has some calming rhythm that pairs nicely with long grinds, and because of the mana regen the sagefish can provide, I thought they could be of value too. When I checked my mail later, I was surprised to see that one of the large venom sacs had sold for a high price. I looked into why, and it all made sense. Xramus was about to release on the server, and those sacs are essential for crafting elixir of poison resistance. That potion is almost mandatory for the Grand Widow Ferlina encounter, so the demand had spiked. And you know what that means.
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys!
The Venom Spitters and Lurkers had the highest drop chance for those large Venom sacs. So in terms of level range, I went for the Venom Spitters. The downside was that their spawn areas were full of bears and wolves. At least the meat of those enemies also sold for a bit. Not much, but it was better than nothing. After a while, I had collected a few sacs. The drop chance wasn't the best, but with the prices being what they were, even a handful was worth it. On top of that, the grind gave me some decent experience, putting me closer to the higher level parts of the zone, where the better resources spawn. Mining, on the other hand, was slow in Ashenvale. Iron veins were scattered and often contested. After quite a bit of searching, I finally found one, and while the value wasn't game-changing, it was enough to keep me looking out for them. While exploring, I stopped by Silverwind Refuge, a small hub I had high hopes for. They offered 2 cooking recipes and the cookbook I mentioned in the last episode. I bought 3 copies, 1 for myself and 2 to sell. Also, cookbook, cookbook, cookbook. I hope you are happy, sir. According to the auctionator, the profit margin wasn't great, but sometimes it's worth taking a small gamble. After a few more quests, I returned to Estrona to restock and pick up some of those enchanting formulas again. Then it was time to get back to farming. And yes, that meant more spiders. The river area quickly became my favorite spot. It had a good mix of ore veins, herb spawns and mobs, ideal for multitasking. Unfortunately, my drop luck was miserable this time around. Not a single venom sac after nearly 20 kills. At least I found a chest near the end of the river, which helped soften the blow a bit. Thanks to all the live fruit in the area, my herbalism skill was finally creeping up towards 210. That's the threshold for harvesting purple lotus, which I'm hoping will turn into a profitable herb later on.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
Speaking of high-level herbs, Grom's Blood, a very high-level item, also grows in this area, which ties into the lore of Ashenvale and Grom Hellscream being corrupted by demonic forces. Sadly, it requires 250 herbalism skill, so it will probably stay out of reach for us. While grinding, I also found a green bow. Auctionator claimed it wasn't worth much, so I decided to use it for myself. Not everything has to be sold, and the DPS increase was just as practical. That said, this particular farming session wasn't great overall. After countless spiders, I ended up with just 1 venom sac. But I guess that's part of the process. Some sessions are rewarding, others test your patience. To make things worse, when I checked the auction house later, I noticed that the venom sacs had already dropped significantly in value. Looks like the gold rush was short-lived. Likely too many players had caught on the demand spike from next preparations. I also noticed that the cookbooks weren't selling nearly as well as I had hoped. Between the high deposit costs and the inconsistent demand, they just weren't reliable moneymakers. But since it is a very low effort item, I was not too discouraged by that. At least the enchantments sold, not for the high price that was teased when buying them, but for a good profit nonetheless. After taking everything into consideration, I came to a conclusion. Focusing on spiders, steelbloom and iron ore still seemed to be the best strategy for Ashenvale for now. It's a balanced mix of drops, gathering and trade goods. The funny part is, I initially included spiders in my plan for their silk, which turned out to be almost worthless compared to the Large Venom Sacs. Back in Astronar, I restocked on arrows and enchanting patterns. After that, it was time for, you guessed it, more spiders. Even if the Large Venom Sacs did lose some value, the combination of ore nodes and herb spawns near the river made this spot still my most efficient option until I would gain a higher level. After grinding a bit longer, I headed back to the auction house in the Nessus for a first mail check. Between buying new skills, paying auction fees and buying our mount, we'll start our gold count at 25 gold. Our target for Ashenvale is 150 gold in total, so we'll need around 125 gold before we can move on. After collecting everything from the mailbox, we are sitting at 93 gold and 60 silver, which means we are roughly halfway there. About 60 gold collected and 60 gold more to go. That's not bad progress at all, especially considering the market fluctuations. So I guess that's where we will end this episode. Next time we'll push deeper into Ashenvale, hopefully raise our herbalism past 210 and unlock some more lucrative farming opportunities. Will the Venom Sacs make a comeback? Will Purple Lotus be worth the trouble? Will we finally find more iron ore? And how many times more will I say cookbook? Find out in the next episode of Goldbound. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.